I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, YouTube. The Disaster Artist is a biographical dramedy directed by and starring James Franco, as well as his brother Dave Franco. It's based on the non-fiction book of the same name, which is co-written by Greg Sestero, one of the main stars in the best, worst movie ever made, known as The Room. So really quickly, basically what the book and the movie is about is it's following Greg Sestero, who plays Mark in The Room, and how he met Tommy Wiseau and both of their journeys into trying to make it into Hollywood, as well as how The Room was made. Now, I'm sure most of you watching this are familiar with The Room, but in case you aren't, The Room is a very famous film from 2003, written, directed, and starring Tommy Wiseau, and it's known for being absolutely terrible. Although The Room is inherently awful, it's garnered a huge cult following, and people still go to live screenings just to see this terrible movie. If you haven't seen The Room, it may be hard to understand why so many people would love something that's so bad, and it's hard to describe why people love The Room so much. It's a movie that's so bad it's good, and it just has so much comedic value to it and a lot of rewatchability. I've watched The Room 3 times in the past 3 months, and a lot of my friends are die-hard fans of this film. I'm part of my university's student programming board, and we had the opportunity to screen The Room in order to promote The Disaster Artist and try to win an advanced screening of that and tickets to the Hollywood premiere. The live screening of The Room was awesome. If you haven't been to a live screening of The Room, I highly recommend it. It's an insane atmosphere. My friend and I actually dressed up as Danny and Chris R from the movie, which was a lot of fun to do. And unfortunately, we didn't win the advanced screening or the Hollywood premiere tickets, but a few of us did get to go to an advanced screening in a city nearby, which was awesome. I was definitely very lucky that I was able to see this movie so early, and I'm so glad I did, because it's without a doubt one of my favorite films of 2017. If it weren't obvious enough, I'm already really into the whole room scene. I've read most of the book. I have like 4 chapters left to go. Almost there. And my friends and I are just weirdly obsessed with this movie. We quote the film to each other all the time and find as many ways to reference The Room whenever possible. So you could say I was pretty excited for The Disaster Artist, and it definitely lived up to its expectations. First of all, and this is probably going to be the most talked about aspect of this movie, James Franco is amazing as Tommy Wiseau. His impersonation of Wiseau is spotless. I have absolutely no problems with it. His accent is right on the money, and I just completely bought into Franco as Tommy Wiseau. I'll admit that at first I just kept thinking to myself, this is James Franco playing Tommy Wiseau, and I couldn't get past it. But then after a while, I just completely forgot, and I was like, yes, this is Tommy Wiseau. I genuinely think that James Franco deserves an Oscar nomination for his portrayal of Tommy Wiseau in The Disaster Artist. He was perfect, and honestly, major props to him. I heard that he actually stayed in character while he was directing this movie, so also major props to the cast and crew for dealing with that. You could tell that James Franco really worked hard and really studied Tommy Wiseau in order to get his portrayal as accurate as possible. And there are so many little details in the film that are just perfect. The attention to detail in this movie is truly astounding, and I'm a big fan of little details being as accurate as possible. So major props on that. There are parts, of course, that deviate from the actual source material. Obviously, the movie is going to kind of take some creative liberties and do things a little differently than how they realistically actually happened. But I completely understand why they did that. And I think one of the main reasons they did that was so that they could have Tommy Wiseau be in the film even more, since the book is written from Greg Sestero's perspective, but we want the film to follow mostly Wiseau. And in a way, it kind of follows Greg Sestero while also making Tommy the main focus. So I think the way that they handled that was really good. Everything just felt so realistic to me, and I forgot I was watching a movie halfway through, because since I've read most of the book and I know that this is a true story, I genuinely just felt like I was eavesdropping in on this real actual thing that happened. The Disaster Artist was just so much fun to watch, and I found myself consistently laughing throughout the film and then feeling bad for it. The movie has a way of kind of pulling on your heartstrings and making you feel bad for Wiseau and for laughing at just everything happening in the movie, because honestly at times this movie is kind of heartbreaking. I feel like at the heart of this movie yes, this is about The Room, this is about how The Room was made, and this is about Tommy Wiseau. But at the same time, it's also a story of friendship and a story of following your dreams and not letting people tell you that you can't do what you want to do, even if you may not be very talented. Even though Wiseau is so eccentric and a bit frustrating at times, the film really finds a way to humanize him and to make the audience empathize so deeply for him. And I think that's why I started to feel really bad for just laughing at everything that was happening, because at some point towards like the third act of the movie, I was like, wow, I'm laughing at this guy and this is totally a real thing that happened. Like, I'm just laughing and making fun of a guy. And then I felt really bad for it. I'm like, wow, I've been laughing at this movie and The Room for so long now, but have I really been thinking of this man's feelings at all? And I'm not gonna lie, I teared up a little bit at the very end of this movie for both sad and happy reasons, so you know, take that as you will. Aside from the somewhat emotional and inspirational aspects of this movie, as I said earlier, this movie is also hilarious, and it finds ways to be funny in ways that don't just poke fun at Tommy Wiseau. There were a lot of little references to The Room that were so funny to watch be recreated, as well as a lot of cameos, which I really enjoyed. I also love the way that the movie actually opened, and I don't want to go into more details obviously, but when you see it, you'll know what I mean. Aside from James Franco's absolutely flawless portrayal of Tommy Wiseau, I thought that everyone else in this movie was also very good. I will admit that it took me a little time to buy into Dave Franco as Greg Sestero, and I think my main problem was the fact that Dave Franco's voice is so different from Greg Sestero's voice, and since I've seen The Room so many times, I know kind of his voice's register, and it was not the same as Dave Franco's. So at times it was a little difficult for me to get past that, just because James Franco was so amazing as Tommy Wiseau, particularly the voice. But then later on, Dave Franco kind of looks more like Greg Sestero, and I was finally able to kind of get into it more. One small performance that I want to praise was Josh Hutcherson as Philip Hollyman, aka Denny from The Room. Josh Hutcherson was really able to nail Denny / Philip's actual voice, and I was kind of impressed by that, honestly. So overall, I just really loved this movie, and obviously I'm a big fan of The Room, so I am a bit biased, but at the end of the day, it's not only about Tommy Wiseau and about The Room, it's also about finding ways to succeed in different ways than expected. And I really liked that aspect of this movie. I'm gonna give The Disaster Artist an A and buy it on Blu-ray because it's a film definitely worth rewatching just for the parts where they recreate The Room. Like, I can't wait to rewatch those scenes again, as well as just the whole movie. Thank you guys so much for watching my review. If you enjoyed it, please let me know how you felt about it in the comments below and tell me what you think about The Room and The Disaster Artist. If you haven't already seen The Room, first of all, go out and watch it. Are you kidding me? It's so much fun. But secondly, I highly recommend watching it before seeing The Disaster Artist. It's not required viewing, but it'll definitely enhance your enjoyment of The Disaster Artist, and some of the small references will be a lot funnier. One of my friends that I went to see the movie with hadn't seen The Room beforehand, but she still really enjoyed it. So it's definitely not required, just very much recommended. Also, be sure to stay throughout the entire end credits, because there is a scene at the very end and you don't want to miss it. I actually found out about the end credit scene after I interviewed Philip Hollyman, aka Denny himself. My friend Alison, who I briefly mentioned earlier, she was the Chris R to my Denny. We actually have a weekly radio show called The Highlight Reel, where we discuss movies and nerd culture news and all that good stuff. It's essentially just a weekly live podcast, but we actually post all of our episodes online after doing them live. So if you're interested, be sure to check out all of our social media links in the description below. You can find our podcast on iTunes and Google Play Music. We're really happy about that. We have both iPhone and Android representation. Not all of our episodes are up yet, but they will be very soon. And we just interviewed Philip Hollyman, like I said, and it was a great interview. He's a very nice guy, and I actually got a lot of insight into just how the whole Room experience was for him. And it's an interview you definitely do not want to miss. We haven't posted the interview yet, but we will be posting it very shortly, so be sure to follow all of our social media and website links if you want to give it a listen. But yeah, that about wraps it up for this review, so thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I know I'm very biased because I'm a big fan of The Room, but motherfucker.